I know it's been a little while since I've done anything phonology wise with you, and that's because I'm just gradually building up the journals, and once I've got them all finished I'll give you a flip through, but I thought it was maybe worth just giving you a wee heads up on where I've got to. What I've been doing is, if you remember, I printed this fabric for this cover for the first one, which is kind of like my summer journal, and I've done this technique, which is dropping paint, which I mentioned when I did that. And all you do is you scrunch your fabric up and you drop paint, and then you spray and the paint starts spreading. Now if you use, and I use all of these are acrylic inks, if you use an acrylic ink that is opaque, you get this kind of different, it has a solider centre and you get a kind of different spread around it. If you use one that is transparent, you get a more gentle spread, and that's where you get these kind of different effects of the way the paint spreads. This effect here was a bit of a happy chance, and it was because I'd forgotten to put it back out flat while it was drying, and so the greens kind of gathered in that fold that there was there, and it's kind of dried, which is it's interesting. The other thing to say is, with all these, you'll find they're different on both sides. Now you see these acrylic inks are very heavily pigmented, and they're not gritty, but you can tell the pigment's there, and so they sit on the top of the fabric more, and actually this side is gentler, for want of a better word, than that side. That side's more, well, the other side, not the side that you've sprayed on, tends to be gentler, and that's the same even with the green, but especially with the heavily pigmented paints. I hope you can see the difference in that you end up with a kind of gentler side and a more in your face side. But I just wanted to show you that, because I did mention you could drip on rather than doing this printy. I just, so you are aware that you drip on and it spreads, and after you finish it continues to spreading. I did this one first, and I didn't leave a lot of space. I left more. There was quite a bit of white space when I finished. I mean, this is what it looked like, well, maybe more white space when I finished, but by the time it dried, most of the white space I'd left had covered up. So be aware that it does spread even after you've finished. So I've been working on those, which are the journal covers, and as you can see, I've got this one stuck down, but I don't have this one stuck down, and I've not actually, so that's by all intents and purposes, and these are very loose. That's the summer, that's the autumn. I haven't done the winter, which will be another one that's kind of stamped like this, and this is going to be the inside of the spring one. So I've got that far with them. I've also been making some more of the journal pages. So these are bits from the October journal, and if you remember in the summer one I printed, let's go here, I stamped and stenciled. So one was stenciled, then one was stamped, then one was stenciled, then one was stamped. And for this journal I'm carrying forward the stamping, and I'm introducing using napkins. And for this autumny one, that wasn't a particularly, this one here you can see better. For this autumny one I've introduced some gold matte medium, and it just gives that kind of, the one it shows really well on is the trees. Where's that one? Look at this. It just gives a real kind of that colour of autumn, that light you get in autumn. It just gives that lovely light of autumn. So I've got napkins for that, and then stamping, and I'll give you a full run through of these once I've done them, as I said. And for this ones, I've used, for the tabs, I've used all the dials and colour wheels, or whatever you want to call them, from Arty Arty for my tabs on this. These tabs are just decoration, they're not really for anything. Well, we'll see. I might end up using them. I'm not planning on writing anything on them, is what I'm meaning. Then for the cover of these ones, and I'm not going to put the policy closures in these. I might do after the journals are finished, but I'm not going to do while I'm using the journals. And for the colours of these ones, I've used a sponge technique. And I'm still, that's the kind of stage I'm at the moment. I'm still humming and hawing as to whether I'm going to stencil over these like I did in the summer one. I would stick some of the Arty Arty images on here, because I wasn't using the Arty Arty. I used the Arty Arty paper and then stenciled, and this time I've sponged. So I was thinking I might stick on some of the Arty Arty images. That's what I was thinking of doing, though I haven't got to that stage yet. So I'm just showing you where I am, just as a wee update, because I'm conscious that it's been a while since I gave you a wee update of how the journals are getting on. Well, I just recorded the bit that you've just seen and the bit that you're going to see after I finish this bit. And then I thought, right, what am I going to do now? And I thought, oh, let's finish off these. And I thought, well, why don't you put the camera back on again then, Kirsten? I do have a bit of an issue. As I said, my hands are sore. I can't get the gloves on because my hands are too sore to get these gloves on. So I'm going to see how we get on without using gloves, because it can get messy. As you can see, you can get messy. And anyway, so I'm working on two at the same time. Let me try and this is what will be the outside of one of the signatures. This will be the inside, and this is the other one, that this is the inside, and you can see how the inside is very different from the outside, and this one will be the outside. I have been using for this one, which is for the autumny one, I'm going to be I have been using these distress crayons. There's a surprise. In aged mahogany, gathered twigs, crushed olive, wild honey, and good old faithful rusty hinge. So I've been using those and using them in different quantities to get the different kind of looks. So I've got my colours in here. The first thing I need to do is I need to just add water and get these crayons smooshed down into a paint, as it were. So it's just, and one of the things, a bit like what I was saying with the cloths, I'm going to use put my finger in one of the fingers. Some of them the pigment is quite grainy, so the yellowy ones of these distressed crayons I think have a lot of ochre in them, and they end up being quite grainy, so you've just got to get that all broken down, and so that you've not got lumps, because you don't really want lumps on it. So I'm just kind of squashing this down. This takes a wee while. Once I've done it, I'll be back. Okay, so I've got them ready. I'm also using natural sponges. I'm using natural sponges because I like the variety you get with a natural sponge, but you can use a synthetic sponge. And I've only got 5 out so that I don't need to keep on going and washing them. You need to soak your natural sponge first and then wring it out so that it doesn't, I can't squeeze properly at the moment, but so it doesn't drip, so it's totally run out. And then what you do is you just Let me just check what colour I'm doing on the bottom. Right, so the bottom here I've got the kind of green right down at the bottom here. So let's start with the green. Tap it and just tap a bit off, and then turning your sponge around so you get different images. And this, what we're doing at this stage is we're just getting the background, which in this case is going to be the green. For other ones I started with the yellow or the rusty hinge. I don't think I've started with the brown at all. Oh, I think maybe that one there I started with the brown, because that's kind of getting near. And then you just go in there for a bit more. And you can also turn your sponge over and get another bit of your sponge if you want. And what I'm doing with this, oh, and I'm doing this wrong, so just ignore me for a second. This is the inside, of course, so I don't need to put so much on. I want to do it kind of more, I only need to do the bit that's showing, and I want to do it more just like that. That's a bit too much, but I'm not going to fuff about that. Then I move on to the next colour, and the colour doesn't really matter. Let's put a bit of the yellow in next, which is, wild honey, and we're just putting a bit in just to give it a bit of colour. There we go. That'll do that, and then we'll move on to putting a bit of the red in, I think, just because the red will give it a wee, it's quite dark, the red. This is aged mahogany, which I suppose some might argue isn't red, but I wanted that richer red rather than barn door or fired brick. Then I think I'm going to put on a wee bit of gathered twigs. I don't want too much of gathered twigs on this particular one, so let's just put on gathered twigs. And then I'm going to put on rusty hinge as my top colour. And you can see how each of the different sponges give a different kind of pattern as well. And it does give a kind of notion of leaves in a way. But it's more about the colours I'm doing it for. So remembering that this is going to be folded over, and it's only going to be that kind of bit that's showing, I think we're going to call that done for the inside of that one. So let's move, this is the inside of this one already done. Let's move to the outside and go back to the green, and this time we want it all over like I started doing, and then realised I was doing the wrong thing on the other one. Just want it all over, move it around, cover it up. It's got caught on something else, but that doesn't matter. That's the joy of this. It doesn't matter if you end up with a different colour on it as well. It really doesn't. I think we want a different side of that, because it's been a bit, they do after a while kind of tend to, the holes tend to clog up, and you end up getting quite a dense pattern if you're not careful. Make sure you stamp off the edges as well. And it's good, the temptation is to do, right, I'll do this bit. But if you do that, then you will change, even if you haven't got a sewing hand like me at the moment, you will change your how much you stamp and how heavy you stamp. You'll also change the nature of the paint itself, will change during the process. So just keep moving around different bits of the page. I'm going to need a bit more water on that, I think. Let's just spray a wee bit more water on there. See, and suddenly, because I've sprayed a bit more water, it's a slightly different green we've got, which is absolutely fine. But if you'd done it all in just one bit, then it would have maybe not been as fine, because suddenly you'd have had a brighter bit of green. There was also a bit of gathered twigs, I think, got into this, because this is nowhere near as bright green as it usually is anyway. There we go. I think we'll call that done with that. So let's move on. I'm going to put some of the red on next, I think, just to give some. And what I'm mainly doing is heading for where there's a bit of a gap. Not all the gaps, but I'm not. I mean, you do get a little bit of stamping over, which you want as well, but I don't want. It's mainly the gaps. I don't want there to be too many gaps, then you're filling up with one colour. That's all I want on there. I think we'll just do a couple of very light ones in some spaces in the colour. Then I'm going to move on to my yellow, which is this one. My wild honey. And again, I'm going in, this time I'm ignoring the green and I'm going in the spaces in between where the red is. So it's bigger spaces in between the red, so I'm getting to put more stuff in those gaps, but I'm really going in the spaces in between the red. So the green is dense with not very many spaces, and those spaces are filled with the red in this instance, but your second colour, and then your third colour, you're back to doing a denser colour, filling in the spaces that your second colour has left. I hope that makes sense, and I hope you can see how that's really gives the layering effect. A bit more on that. And you can see how a little goes a long way when you're sponging. It's a lovely technique. I used to do a lot of paintings by sponging. I haven't done that in a long time. Right, so now we're on to the brown I'm going to do next. And the brown again, this is your fourth one, so it's less, and this time it's in between the yellow. So I'm looking for spaces like there where the yellow didn't land. Looking for spaces where there's either no yellow or not much yellow, and putting the brown in those spaces. Remembering, which is the thing that I sometimes forget, to keep turning your sponge so you get a different. And then after you've filled in those spaces, you might say, well, I want a wee bit down there, or I want a wee bit there. And it's perfectly okay to put some right on top of a yellow if that's what you want to do. I think that's maybe okay. And then rusty hinge, and I'm going to put a wee bit more water on rusty hinge first. Oh, can't do that. Oh, pinky. Can do it with the pinky. And this time, again, we're going in the spaces that the brown has left, regardless of whether those spaces, I mean, all those spaces I've actually taken up now with other colours as well. And that's when you start layering on top of other colours. And I will do a bit of layering on the brown, but my first thing is to, where's the brown, where's the spaces between browns? And that's where I'm sponging. Now that's starting to get a bit clogged up and a bit. Let's just use a different bit. Trying not to get the stuff on my fingers, but that's not going to work, is it? So let's just stop trying. There we go. And any bits that are still showing through as very white, then you just want to knock them back if you... But it's okay to show white because the white actually helps bring out the other colours. So you can see that I've used the same colours. And using the same colours in different quantities, you get very different effects. Now, back to what I was showing you. I'm working on my winter ones at the moment, and as I put them down to dry, I thought, not giving them an update of what I'm doing, I should really probably do that. So these are the winter ones, and the winter ones I've used the silver, which has given this frosty look to everything. Oh, I've torn that a little bit. Never mind, it will be covered by the thingy. So, and as you can see, I'm okay about patching up, and sometimes I don't bother patching up. Sometimes I do this. If you want to see any of the techniques that I'm using, that I've not recorded anything that I'm making at the moment, please leave a comment down below, and I can easily do that. I can easily, especially if it's something that I've not yet finished doing, and even if it is something I finished doing, I can do a bit more for you. So if you want to see any of the techniques, let me know, and I will post another update at some point. At the moment I have trouble with my hands, and so I can't sew in the journals, which is why I didn't get to the stage of sewing in a journal and showing you that I said I was going to do. So it's even more important I give you a wee update as to what I have been doing instead. But once my hands are got over this flare up, then I can sew these journals in. I'm not going to sew these in because of the policy closures, but I'm going to sew the rest in and not put policy closures on them. And then once I've used the summer one, I will sew it in, which will be, well, I've no idea when I'm starting this. So whether the summer one ends up being the last one I do, because I don't start until October, or whether the summer one ends up being the first one I do because I start in, well, there's a lot of debate about when the months change. As far as I'm concerned, winter is December, January, February. Spring is March, April, May. Summer is June, July, August. And autumn is September, October, November. And I know other people think other things, but for living in Scotland, that's how the seasons kind of work. We get the coldest weather after Christmas. We don't get it November and December and then January. We get it December, January and February. We get the warmest weather in June, July, August. September we can have beautiful, what we call Indian summers here. We can have beautiful weather, but it tends to be, the leaves start changing, it tends to be wetter, it tends to have more of a autumnal feel. It's getting darker because we have long dark winters here, and so it's getting darker, so it doesn't feel like summer any longer by the time you get into September. So that's why I tend to think of September as the beginning of autumn. So anyway, that's just me prattling. So I'm going to be quiet now and say thank you for watching. Remember, please, if there's anything you want to actually see the technique of, just ask down below and I'll do that for you. Keep crafting. Bye for now.